Hello, all. Let us continue talking on the data frames topic. So, we have seen that in the previous video on how to access different elements of a data set, right? If you want to print a few columns or whatever. So, the projects versus defects will continue. So, uh, the first thing what we did previously, we just imported pandas as PD and then we read um, the entire data set, right? So now let us assume this is a very simple data set, right? You just have several columns, very few columns, very few rows, and it's easy to talk. Now, in reality, the data set contains huge data. In thousands of rows and columns sometimes, right? Columns could be lesser, but rows could be several, right? Because having columns higher is little difficult to maintain the data. Again, it depends on what data we are reading. So few columns and thousands of rows, right? So now in that case, if you just want to know some info, a consolidated info of this data set, what we can do is um, we can access the info using info method. Okay, so now when we run this, you see here what it is saying is basically this is a data frame and the range is 0 to 6, right? There are basically 7 items. And then there are two columns which are projects and defects. Basically, this number is appended when we try to print, but in reality, when we see the data frame, there are only two columns. So, total two columns, and you can see the first column projects has 7 items and all the data is of integer type, and the second column is of defects and all the data is of integer type. So there are two data types, and if you see the info method, you can also see how much memory will be used by this particular data. Can also be seen using the info method. So if we see 240 bytes is occupied by this data frame, right? So a consolidated info can be get using info of method. Now I don't want all this. I just want to know only the rows and columns data. So in that case, can just access this using shape. Okay, so using shape, you can access the columns and rows. If you see, there are 7 rows and 2 columns in this particular data set, right? Ultimately, we what we are doing here is we are basically trying to get a, a synopsis of the entire data set into a simple um, data where we get to know how many rows are there, how many columns are there, what are the types of data, what is the memory occupied. So very simple thing, right? So the complex data set is being read using simple methods. So such a nice tools are available in this pandas data frame, and we can access all these to analyze our data based on requirement.